English translation 232nd contact. Friday, 17th of November, 1989. 0037 hours.
I am very happy to officially welcome you again. I was very busy for 3 days to keep my mouth shut to our group members, so as not to betray myself because you telepathically told me that from today on there will be official contacts between you and me again, from which I may write down contact reports again in the future. On the one hand also because it is possible for me again for health reasons, and on the other hand because you again allow that, for which you should now actually give the reason, because this was not intended.
To answer with Quetzal's favorite phrase, I have to say that is of correctness. The connections to your explanations can be explained as follows. It is true that it was not intended that we ourselves should continue the contacts with you for the next 11 years, because this task should have been taken over by Asket from the Dal universe with some of her friends. Unfortunately, however, you suffered a serious health breakdown on the 4th of November 1982 at 05, 35 Hz, which was life-threatening for you and as a result of which you were finally unable to keep written records of the slowly decreasing contacts or to communicate with us in telepathic form for longer periods of time, and as a consequence, from the 31st of October 1984 and after the 196th contact, you were neither able to record the slowly decreasing contacts in writing, nor were you able to communicate with us in telepathic form over longer periods of time. Although after your breakdown and the life-threatening injuries you suffered, you still wrote down the Book of OM and remained in constant telepathic and physical contact with me, even despite your telepathic difficulties. With all gay vault beyond all might and violence, with all available forceful means, physical, psychical, mental, and to use consciousness-based powers, abilities, and skills in order to carry out and practice tremendous deeds and actions. You forced yourself to complete the OM work and exhausted your last reserves of strength, so that after the completion of the work you possessed no more reserves of strength and were much closer to death than the 2 years before. Thus you were no longer capable of telepathy in sufficient form, and were no longer able to record and write down the exact records of our contacts. But just the best form of spirit telepathy would have been fundamentally necessary in order to very precisely take up and maintain the contacts with Asket and her friends, because these contacts would only have taken place over very long distances, precisely because Asket and her friends would not have come to the Earth. So these telepathic contacts had to be canceled and physical contacts had to be made. For our part, however, we had completed our task in terms of contacts with you on the Earth, as planned, exactly according to the plan that our contacts should last from 1975 to 1986, after which we then had to withdraw again, which had also happened on schedule for a short time. Unfortunately, our contacts until the 29th of January 1986 did not bring the success in all respects that had been hoped for, which is why we officially excluded false group members. Note, dissident group members from you with great regret, while Quetzal and I maintained the contacts unofficially. But we hoped that with time everything would change for the better. So, on the one hand, in the group, and on the other hand, also in world affairs, that yes, by the peace meditation operated by you, with which since then also 5 or 11 million human beings of our peoples on Era and the 3.02 billion 3,000 20,000 human beings from the peoples of our Federation, galaxy-wide, support you. And indeed, success has not failed, and has begun to bear its fruits, for example, in Russia, in Poland, in the GDR, in Bulgaria, CSSR, and Korea, which will be followed by other states. And this also happened according to the prophecies in which it is written that peace will come from Russia. And all these immeasurably enormous successes are only to be attributed to your group and all those loyal to you on the earth, as well as to us Aarons and our Federation friends. At present, you have 406 peace meditation fulfillers on the earth, and you alone can be proud of this number to do the only effective and correct peace meditation, which triggers those peace impulses in the human beings of the earth and allows peace to slowly become reality. As they are stored in the storage banks, from there meet the human beings and are understood and brought to effect by them. The fact is that all efforts for peace on the earth, whether in political, religious, fanatical, allegedly esoteric form, are just as ineffective as all attempts of those who are alleged media or other alleged contact persons to spirits, saints, or extraterrestrials, and so forth. All their efforts are completely meaningless and futile, for they all lack the real possibility of applying those things and knowledge that are necessary to awaken the necessary impulses in human beings, thus bringing them to fruition and effect. They also lack the knowledge of the time at which peace meditation must be dutifully done, and in which the participation of our 312,3,500,000 co-obligated ones becomes a mightful swinging wave of power in a voluntary form. The honor of this knowledge and ability belongs solely to your group and to all those loyal ones who hold to you and, through the truthful teaching, slowly become more knowledgeable and learn to think and behave according to creation. On earth, the honor and success of the ongoing peace efforts of governments and countless human beings belong solely to the members of your group and to all those 3,181 loyal ones who hold to you and work with you in honesty, truth, and recognition. Unfortunately, however, in addition to all these successes in peace and freedom, which are also in progress, it should be mentioned that the bitterness has not been resolved, for the setbacks will not be very long in coming. On the one hand, the human beings in all countries, who have now been freed from their restricted laws, behave so unreasonably that the governments will soon again be forced to take sharp and restrictive measures, which unfortunately will again lead to bloodshed. The Western and so-called free countries also carry very much guilt for inciting the hate and negative propaganda against the Eastern countries and also the Southern countries in Africa and America, also, unfortunately, in leading murderous underground wars. The greatest screamers and damage bringers are thereby the Americans as well as the Germans, next to various others and principally Western countries, that take it that they must make themselves the directors and rebukers of the Eastern countries, next to which certain Western powers infamously defame and derail their governments in the Eastern countries in a secretive manner. Through intrigues, they stir up the people against their governments and sow disharmony in any form they are able to. So everything would, unfortunately, change again, and one day, again, evil and bloody wars will thereby come about. Especially America in this regard is active in very many evil forms, as this already has been since time immemorial. These people, with few exceptions of reasonable and actually truth-seeking human beings, have to this day never learned to seek and to find truthful knowledge, and true truth, and true love, and true honest peace. Very many human beings in America are only focused in their inner selves towards profit and power. And indeed, at any price, no matter whether this involves the destruction of human life, friendships, or animals and nature. This also proved to be the case with Lee Elders, who first presented himself as a good sheep, but soon turned into an evil wolf, as happened with this W.R., whom you unfortunately trusted, although we had advised you against him.
Note Ta and Billy of 17.6. 4. Unfortunately, After more than 20 years, in 2004, it turned out that there was very evil plotting against Lee Elders from Switzerland by various persons, and that the truth was completely twisted to the detriment of Lee Elders.
In matters concerning myself,
through slanderous intrigues that lead back to the early 80s, unpleasant differences resulted in connection with Lee Elders USA, and as a consequence, a leaflet was printed in an edition of 300, and about 180 copies of it were distributed. The leaflet presented explanations that more than 20 years later turned out to be lies and slander, and were quite consciously and calculably circulated by persons whose aim it was to oust me, Billy Edward Albert Meyer, from the position of being the virtually most important person in regard to the contacts with the Pleiadians. The idea of these defamations was to take my place through egotistic behavior, arrogance, and overbearingness, and push me into the background. The persons concerned intended with it to take over the stage, in order to be able to nourish their self-interest in living in a selfish and inconsiderate manner, and in fact, consciously and thus against better understanding, the truth was transformed into lies and slander in order to reach the abominable aims. Thereby I was badly deceived and misled, while Lee Elders was evilly and slanderously reviled and was insulted to be a fraud, liar, and thief. Through the truth that in the meantime has come to light with the help of the Player and Quetzal, the whole sad matter presents itself in the way I have described above. That signifies that Lee Elders has greatly been wronged, for which I publicly apologize with great respect in this way, and also hope that everyone who had acknowledged in good faith that slanderous matter will accept it as a lie and slander and correct the image of Lee Elders to see it again in the right light. In order to reach all the wrongly informed ones, and above all to publicly vindicate Lee Elders, I choose to do this in this way through the channel of this bulletin that is circulated in my name and in Figu's name worldwide in the Internet. There is to be explained also that Lee Elders has never taken a stand and defended himself against the slanderous accusations, and has patiently endured everything over a time of more than 20 years. And in spite of wrongful differences in regard to Figu and my person, he continued to be a good and dear friend, and thus I express my sincerest thanks to him. If I had not asked Quetzal some time ago to finally get to the bottom of this whole matter, then this issue would probably never have been cleared up, and the differences would have continued to exist lifelong, and would have caused discord. Therefore, I also thank Quetzal in this way through the bulletin for his immeasurable assistance, but I also thank Ptah who strengthened me in my effort to publicly submit this unpleasant issue as it is presented here to the world in order to end the defamation and slander towards Lee Elders, and to vindicate him. Billy Edward Albert Meyer.
357th contact, the 26th of April, 2004, 0:23 hours.
Thank you for your effort to check. But may I ask you now whether you have already found out something regarding the matter that I asked you about a fairly long time ago? It simply does not leave my mind. Therefore, I asked Christian Freener to send an email to the address I am looking to make contact with.
You speak very carefully about it, dear friend. I guess you do not want to speak publicly about it, at least at this time, and not mention any names, do you? I will keep that in mind. Now, the fact is that by wrong actions and wrong information of some persons very well known to you, differences, slander, and almost conflict have developed, whereby defamation and slander penetrated also right up to the core group members. Unfortunately, at that time we let ourselves in on defamation by way of assuming that these would be true. That again rests upon our kind view that the persons concerned as I will call the fallible ones who have done wrong, would have had a clear and in-depth insight of all of the decisive matters that had turned up. However, regrettably, we let ourselves be deceived by statements of the aforementioned persons. As you know, this was still very often the case at that time. Later, when through you we had been set right, and did not let ourselves any more become mixed up in specific machinations of the destructive powers, we determined not to get involved in any sort of clarifications, because far too often we let ourselves be deceived by wrong words and thoughts of the fallible ones who spoke and thought differently to what the truth represented. Because we were not able to understand lies, as this was unknown and foreign to us, we unfortunately interpreted all wrong and false words and thoughts as truth and reality, and in fact, for so long until you set us right. However, up to that point in time, years went by, and only since 1999 we do possess the strenuously acquired ability to critically analyze the words and thoughts of human beings. Consequently, we do not consider simply everything that is thought and spoken as truth. But that we were able to learn and develop abilities in this way, this alone is entirely thanks to you, my friend. And only through this acquired ability was it possible for me to look after the matter you have asked me to clarify. So I found out that you had been wrongly informed in several matters connected with your concern, whereby seemingly confusion and unclarity developed that resulted in differences between you and the other party. I was naturally aware that you did not want this to happen, and were always looking for a way to dissolve these differences. Wherefore you have now asked Christian to pursue a path, after I could give you the necessary information about who had caused discord and quarrel. Of course, the persons concerned will vehemently dispute and deny it, for they are highly opinionated of themselves and domineering, which makes reason and understanding impossible. All of this I have found out only through my recent examinations, when according to your recommended guidelines, I followed my intuition whereby I had a frightening understanding in this respect. We have let ourselves be deceived to a great extent by the aforementioned persons, and accepted their thoughts and words to be the truth, although they were wrong, overbearing, domineering, and arrogant. We shall never again allow ourselves to be deceived by such occurrences. Your trust, for your part, was miserably and disgracefully abused in order to insert a wedge between yourself and the party opposite you, as self-interest, arrogance, and the know-all and opinionated pig-headedness of the fallible and incorrect persons in regard to your position did not allow them to not be in the first place and not occupy the first seat. You have often spoken with me and also with Ptah about it, and you have always felt very sorry and did not understand that these differences had developed in spite of wrong information and wrong advice that were given to you. And for us all, it is of great need, as it is also for you, to settle the differences that have arisen through lies and fraud, and to request settlement and leniency. Just like you, we do not want anything to be left incorrect, but want everything to be clarified and express our thanks to the other party for understanding and leniency. It is very much to be regretted that everything resulted in this way, and that we also participated and asked you to act according to the false words of the person advising you. If we had attached more attention at the time to your words and thoughts, we would have asked for your advice then already, and carried out the analyses according to your advice. We failed to do that. Unfortunately, and that is why we feel greatly indebted to you, but greatly indebted to the other party as well, with whom you have been trying to get in contact with through Christian for some time. May your efforts be successful, for it would not only be pleasing for you, for the core group members, and the other party, but it would be a help as well in overcoming an unpleasant matter, and would also be pleasant for us.
So nothing new has come about. But you know, Quetzal, I am guilty as well, and in respect to my trust, I should have been more critical and checked everything, and not have agreed to it unseen. I have been taught a lesson, and now check everything precisely before I agree.
No, there is no new result, yet what I could find out should be sufficient. It is extensive and points into the direction of all what has happened regarding the matter. But the fault is also ours. We have let it happen that our trust was abused. Besides, we could not listen and believe that words and thoughts of human beings of Earth do not have to be identical with the truth, and therefore can be lies.
You are probably right in that it should suffice. Consequently, nothing more shall be done but to try and right this matter. In addition, I believe, when the conflict is settled, at least the names of the other party, with which the unpleasant differences exist, should be publicly mentioned in our contact reports in order for them to be rehabilitated.
That is absolutely right and is also my view. Ta as well agrees, for I have told him of this matter today.
Good. In respect to this matter, everything is now clear to all of us. Then I have to inform only the core group members when it is time, though I do not want to mention the names of the fallible persons, in order to maintain peace. I am hopeful that everything will be put right, for I regard the other side as good friends, and respect them as reasonable and understanding human beings who do not harbor unforgiving thoughts.
You will be right in the end. That is how Ptah and I see it. Simply put, it is quite regrettable that such unpleasant matters could arise. In fact, we have not reckoned with such in this form, because we were too, what do you call that, blue-eyed, meaning naive, in respect to honesty of certain human beings who have gathered round you. If we had listened to you earlier, a lot of trouble and harm could have been avoided, and furthermore, we could have reached better and extensive knowledge and understanding in this respect.
358th contact, the 6th of May, 2004, 3:51 p.m. M and 10:58 p.m. M.
So I have hit the nail on the head. Right. Then maybe I will hit the nail's head, and I believe it is time to mention the name of the person of whom I have spoken of with Quetzal on April 26th. Regarding this person, I would like to settle the differences, which have existed for years and developed through information that became falsified. We had a contact on April 26th at 23 minutes p.m. when we had a talk about my concern, and now you can see this fax that I have received hours later at 7:51 p.m. Naturally, I was very pleased about it, and hope that now everything will be set right again. Last weekend, I dictated a letter to Christian Freener to further the progress regarding the matter in order to eradicate the misunderstanding and the differences. Here, please, read the fax.
Pa is reading the fax that is written in the English language.
It is very pleasing, and I think that you are permitted to speak publicly about this unpleasant matter.
I had this very thought as well. I will publicly take up the matter in a bulletin, and I will explain everything in the form of a vindication. To add Quetzal's explanation will be probably right, thus the matter will also be settled from your side. All of it together will be published in the internet, so that all wrongly and misinformed persons can read it. What is your opinion about it?
Your decision seems to be the right one. It is entirely in keeping with your openness and honesty.
Here then, if you do not mind, I will say now what I have to say. Should you want to correct or assist with giving advice here or there, I would be grateful. What do you think of that?
I will be pleased to attend to your wish.
Here is the following that I intend to write under the heading.
Vindication of Lee Elders.
In 1994, a leaflet under my name, Billy Edward Albert Meyer, Sim Ya Se, Silver Star Center, CH8495, Hinterschmidt Ruti, Zeekage, Switzerland, was printed and has been distributed ever since in a circulation of about 180 pieces. In this leaflet, Lee Elders is wrongly described to be a fraud, thief, and a liar. This happened as a result of awfully incorrect information that only now, at this present time, and through the described clarification of the Pleiarans, has been proven to be lies and slander. Through these findings by clarification of the Pleiarans, it could be shown that I, Billy Edouard Albert Meyer, had been misled and lied to in matters of Lee Elders through several persons and their perpetually egotistic presumptuousness, their arrogance, perpetual insistence of knowing better, slander and defamation, as well as through their desire to play number one and be ahead of me, and therefore be the most important persons themselves. Unfortunately, no human being is invulnerable to happenings of this kind. I am also not invulnerable, unfortunately. Regrettably, I put my whole trust in the fallible persons, as they were able to foist proof and pieces of evidence on me that referred to a real fault or proof of guilt of Lee Elders, yet these turned out to be completely false and untrue. Thus, with my assumptions and with the leaflet against Lee Elders, I committed a wrong, and therefore I sincerely apologize in all honesty to Lee Elders and banish the existing differences between him, my person, and the Figu into the past. It needs to be said that the aforementioned leaflet was not drawn up by me, but by one of the persons who believed to be capable of taking over the position next to me, or even my position itself, by lying, slander, and providing false information. Once more, dear Lee Elders, from my side as well as from the Figu's side, and out of a deeply felt need and necessity, I very much apologize for the differences in the past and the abuses caused by the leaflet, etc. For those who led me down the wrong path and who are today, fortunately, no longer part of the Figu core group, I can regrettably not apologize. Billy Edward Albert Meyer.
That is what I think I will have to do. What do you think about it, my friend? Do you have anything to add?
In my opinion, your words said it all, as well as all the explanatory words of Quetzal during your last contact. However, I will add from our side our sincere wish to apologize to Lee Elders, and we would like you to convey this to him. We also have fallaciously been deceived and led astray through the falseness and untruths of the fallible persons.
I am glad that you believe my words to be sufficient, and I have said everything that there is to say.
You have found good words, dear friend Edward. More is not really needed. But now I have to go. Goodbye.
The Rehabilitation of Lee Elders was published under the title In Eigener Sache by Billy in the Figu. Special Bulletin Number 14, May 2004 in German and English, and was also distributed via the internet on the Figu homepage.
And because the majority of Americans think, live, feel, and act in this kind and wise, we were also forbidden to ever make contact with Americans, except for one single attempt, which failed miserably, as you well know. So we stayed away from contacts with Americans, and we will do so for all the future, unless they and their government and secret government completely change and begins to live, think, feel, and act according to the laws and recommendations of the creation. But such a prospect can only be expected in the distant future. And as we know, such a transformation cannot take place until nearly 1,140 years have passed. For this reason, it is also absolutely impossible for us to establish or even maintain contacts with human beings in America or those who are descended from there. The whole kind and wise of America and the life, Feeling, acting, and thinking of the majority of the human beings there have made it impossible for us to make contact with even one person there since these people came into existence. Contacts have been established with humans from outside the Earth, with Americans only in a few cases, which on the one hand, however, can be counted on one hand and which, on the other hand, have taken place with humans of foreign stars, whose knowledge and wisdom and their philosophies are absolutely of the least importance and have no relationship to the true truth of the teaching of creation and its laws and recommendations. Thus the world and its human beings can at least be reassured that no earth-shattering wisdom, teachings, truths, or even knowledge could emanate from America, which would contain serious changes for a better and creation-oriented life for the humans of the earth. And above all, no knowledge or wisdom or anything else can emanate from America that would come from extraterrestrial humans or from intelligences of an immaterial kind. This also puts the lie to all those Americans, as well as to all other lying persons all over the world and around the globe who claim to have physical, spiritual, telepathic, visionary, or any other form of contact with us. Such assertions, which are directed at any contact with us, are only malicious, profit-seeking, sick or simply delusional webs of lies, swindle and deception, because the only person on the planet Earth who actually maintains physical as well as telepathic and also other contacts with us Plei-Aran is you alone. The remaining 3 who had been designated for this and whom you knew have unfortunately been separated from life by an unforeseen accident.
Note from Ta and Billy of 17.6. 2004. The third person died in an accident before he could appear and take over his task.
Also, the malicious and profit-greedy assertions that my daughter Simya Se is in contact with various Earth humans, or even with humans from other worlds who are supposed to live on the Earth, which, however, is an unbelievable lie, which also only corresponds to an infamous lie of power and profit-seeking Earthlings such as FB and RB Dars, among many others. Simya Se has never been in contact with any other human being on the Earth besides you, except for a somewhat confusing and unforeseen encounter near Zahadan in the Persian desert, where she was met, through carelessness, by a woman from Germany named Elsa Schroeder, which happened many years ago and lasted only a short time, from which no actual contact resulted. It must also be made clear that no humans or spirit forms or other agents of our allies of our Federation maintain any contact with terrestrial humans, neither accidentally nor unconsciously or consciously, thus neither in physical or telepathic nor in any other form. This also does not apply to any humans or spirit forms that are resident in our immediate areas of life and do not belong to our Federation or our races. Other assertions of Earth humans, no matter from where around the world, correspond only to conscious or unconscious lies, swindles and deceits, or simply lying profiteering by liars, swindlers, deceivers, delusional patients, profit seekers, pompous ones, or deliberate falsification of the truth by fanaticism, hatred, or religious sects or governments, which pursue world domination plans, as is the case with certain earthly organizations, which strive for world domination.
Man, oh man, I have not heard such a long and powerful speech from you in years. Besides, you have spoken to me from the heart with your explanations, as well as to all group members who have long wished for such a clarification. Besides, your speech is also good for all those madmen and liars who claim that you broke off your contacts with me because you were angry, because we allegedly failed in every respect, as Manfred Didericks, alias Martin Dillinger, Big Mouth claims recently, And he even dared to spread the lie that you had made contact with other Earthlings out of our failure in order to be able to fulfill the mission after all.
Which is, of course, horrendous nonsense because despite many failures, incongruities, and unfriendliness, etc., we did not have the slightest cause for such a step. But even if such a complete failure had occurred on your part, or on the part of the entire group, we would not have had any need for contacts with any human beings on the Earth except again with you. So if we had found ways and means to get back in touch with you in order to resume the contacts, you are and remain the only person on this planet Earth who can maintain contact with us in any form and manner, while the three of you were only capable of impulse-based contact with a few telepathic abilities. So it will also be that if you leave this material world, no further contacts with human beings on the Earth will take place until you appear again in another personality. But that I have talked about all the spoken concerns was related on the one hand to your telepathic hints and questions 3 days ago, along with concerns that I myself have learned through the records of our control disk and through my own investigations that I have made, driven by the information of the records.
Well, these things are clear. But what about the number of contacts since the beginning? Until the year 1984, I had 196 official contacts with you, all of which I received and could write down according to Quetzal's system, which I probably cannot do in this wise today, and I have to be happy if I can still write normally with a typewriter. But this is not very problematic, because I can simply spend a little more time for this work. But how many contacts have there been since the 29th of January 1986 until today? As in, what contact number should I call today's one, since I am now allowed and able to write it officially again?
Since 1984, 35 further official contacts took place with you through Quetzal, without the contacts with me, Asket, and the others from the DAL universe, whereby today's is the 36th. So the total number of official contacts with today is 232. Regarding the writing down of our conversation, as well as the future ones, because we now continue the contacts in representation for Asket and you, it is true that Quetzal's writing system is no longer applicable, through which you were able to write about 1/200 characters per minute with only one hand. Quetzal's small additional device in your typewriter was removed by him, so that the machine was no longer able to perform as well as it did at the time. Furthermore, we must not expect you to meet the demands of that time, because even though you have miraculously become capable of many abilities again today, which gives us many riddles because it is simply not compatible with the severe brain injuries of that time, the resulting pain, fears, vertigo, evils, and the great amnesia with regard to enormous amounts of knowledge and ability, etc. So we cannot and must not burden you again fully, because by clarifying your health, we know very well that you still suffer from serious evils, which cause you a lot of trouble, even if you do not talk about them and try to hide everything from your surroundings. In spite of the miracle you have accomplished regarding your body and in reference to the reversal of a horrendous knowledge from one destroyed part of your brain to another healthy one, you are still burdened by pain and all sorts of evils, which make you very uncomfortable and which you are no longer able to cope with despite all your efforts. Which is why you can often only walk upright under the influence of medication without complaining because of it, which other self-pitying ones should take as an example. This is not to praise you, but only to clarify at once. So it is also unnecessary for you to express yourself as you just wanted.
So you have seen that again.
Of course.
Okay, a counter-talk would be useless anyway. But maybe I can ask a question?
I expect them.
Well, now that contacts with you personally are officially continuing again, can questions and letters, etc. be addressed to you by group members and other interested parties?
No, this cannot be in any case, not even in reference to an exception. It is also not possible for us to answer any questions if you bring them to us from any group members or other persons. Also, with regard to demonstrations or interferences and assistance, etc., from our side, in any kind and wise and for any purpose whatsoever, I must hereby reject this in advance. As you yourself know very well, we have had very bad and nasty experiences in this respect, and precisely by answering questions, receiving letters, giving demonstrations, and assuring help, by making mistakes which we should have prevented and which have brought very malicious effects and wrong actions, as well as misjudgments, discord, and even disputes. So we will prevent ourselves from committing these mistakes another time by not getting involved in any of the things mentioned. We are very ignorant and prone to error in the judgment of the V-Sin, inner core nature, of the human beings of the earth, because we are not allowed to fathom the Wesenheit, state of inner nature of the earth humans in their innermost being, according to our code of protection of all good things, the personality and the very own ego, because this violates the personal freedom of the human life form, which can never happen and must never happen through us. Because the innermost freedom of the human being alone is their true freedom, and thus one of their most valuable personal goods. Unfortunately, we are not able and not educated to judge human beings in a wise that would enlighten us as to who, how, and what this human being is, etc., as is the case with you, who live on this earthly world and who are familiar with this manner of judging and recognizing the qualities of earth humans, by listening to tones and voices of humans, by their idiom and speaking manner, by their movements, actions, and by their writing style, by their gaze and by their manner of working, etc. We are not able and not educated to assess them in a manner that would enlighten us as to who, as this is the case with you, who live on this earthly world, and who are familiar with this manner of evaluating and recognizing the qualities of the earth humans. And because we are deprived of all this knowledge and these abilities, from now on we must renounce everything concerning the aforementioned. We want to rely only on your abilities, statements and explanations regarding human judgments on the earth in the future, whereby we assume that we can all avoid those misjudgments and mistakes as well as annoyances and evils from now on, whereby for you and the group members, and also for us, many things will become better and friendlier.
This is a very clear answer that I can only accept, even though you may be a little too euphoric and trusting about my knowledge of human nature.
Not at all. If we had relied on your knowledge in this matter and your really very good judgment power before, we and the group members would have been spared a lot of evil.
Ha! And then how did it occur with the Americans, with Lee Elders, Roberta Brooks, Shepard, Randy Winters, and the like? Did I not put myself in the nettles?
This was not your mistake, because with Lee Elders we offered you to work with him, just as we advised and recommended you to do with Ilse von Jacobi and Karl and Anna Veit, because we were thoroughly mistaken in all of them, for the reasons just explained to you. The fact that we have been deceived also applies to some others than those mentioned. With Randy Winters, however, but also with Roberta Brooks and Shepard, etc. You were worked on by a third party for such a long time that you worked together with them until, overtired by the constant pressure, you finally agreed, reluctantly and convinced that it would not end well.
But you really know everything.
It was my duty to study the records of the surveillance equipment carefully. But it is still my duty today, and it will be my duty in the future.
Fine, but that does not help me either, because where the guilt of tiredness and raking lies on me, until I finally said yes and amen to everything, this fact is denied there today.
This is also known to me, but you should not be bothered by it. But now it is time for me to explain a few things to you, for and what you can write down while I speak. These are personal matters which you should treat accordingly. What I still have to say officially refers to greetings that I should order for all and to all group members. First and foremost from my daughter Simyase, then from my daughter Plaja, from Quetzal, Taljda, Manara, Asket, and Nera, but also from all the others you know. Also my greetings belong to it. To all the members of the group who have been striving for some time for real progress and for the fulfillment of their personal and community regulations, I have to convey the great thanks of the entire Plearan people of Era and all the peace meditators of our Federation in the size of 3.02 billion 3,020,000 fellow campaigners, whereby also the High Council is present with its thanks, as well as the Arahat Athersata level.
I simply do not believe that. You are joking.
You know very well that I would never allow myself such a joke. I have taken the liberty of submitting my statements and findings in relation to the change of attitude of various group members and the rapid change to fulfill many given and certain duties to our peoples and to all allies, which has caused a rapture of joy.
If it stays thus, I mean with us.
We are now in good expectation and the assumption that the necessary leaf has now turned for the better. In this expectation and assumption, I will now also turn away from this conversation with the promise that the time will not be too long before we get back in touch with you.